Toimintaleffojen olennainen osa ovat hurjat tulipalot ja valtavat räjähdykset. Mutta kuinka ne tehdään, siitä kertoo tämän iltainen Hollywoodin hurjat.
Welcome to Hollywood Stuntmakers. On this episode, the action heats up with movie pyrotechnics. You'll learn how the pyro effects in Backdraft revolutionized the way fire is used in film. You'll find out how stuntmen become human torches. And effects expert Joe Lombardi will reveal how he engineered the famous napalm blast in Apocalypse Now. All this and more on Hollywood Stuntmakers. Fire. It's nature's most unpredictable element. Fires and explosions have been a staple of Hollywood ever since the early days of film. But since then, visual effects technicians have employed pyrotechnics in increasingly dramatic and realistic ways. That's a real inferno you're looking at in this scene from Backdraft. The challenge for filmmakers is to make fire appear dangerous while maintaining safety on the set. Ron Howard's Backdraft employed the most extensive use of fire in any Hollywood film to date. By studying videotapes of real firefighters confronting actual fires, effect supervisors Alan Hall, Mikhail Solomon, Clay Pinney, and Scott Farrar pushed pyrotechnology further than it had ever gone before. Here's the director of Backdraft, Ron Howard.
I do feel it was a very dangerous movie to make. We knew that. We talked about it. We tried to cover our risks, but fire is a very unpredictable thing. Really, more than any movie I've ever been around, I lost sleep over this thing. I was very concerned and more than relieved when we finally wrapped. Now, at the same time, we knew that in making a movie for 1991, that we had to offer something unusual and just sort of a slice of life, you know, what's it like to be a firefighter, that isn't quite enough. So we knew that the real cinematic challenge, the movie-making challenge here, was to try to show you what it's like inside a fire. And it's extraordinary. And the firefighters who've seen it so far tell us that, you know, far and away, it's the closest to making them feel like that, you know, they were there. It was an amazing challenge, and the things that the actors were doing in terms of putting themselves into close proximity with fire were things that I really couldn't ask them to do. They worked creatively and ambitiously towards trying to, again, realistically give the audience some sense of what these guys do in crunch time.
Clay Pinney was nominated for an Academy Award for his pyrotechnical work on Backdraft.
During Backdraft, we developed several different types of flame delivery system as well as some of the standards that have been used forever. One of the things we did, we ended up plasma cutting pipe, which gives you a very thin line. So it gives you a sheet of flame rather than the slotted pipe type of fire that you normally see. I think where we changed more than anywhere else was our fuel delivery systems and some of the types of fuel. To be totally realistic, it would have been so much smoke that you wouldn't be able to see anything. So we used a combination of diesel fuel, mole smoke, some other things that we would put in, so you got the haze, but you could still see through the scene to what you needed.
The heat from movie fires is so intense that special camera housing has been designed to ensure that the cameras don't experience a meltdown. Mikhail Solomon was the cinematographer on Backdraft.
When we started preparing Backdraft, my original thoughts was, this is going to be really hot. I want to see the cameras right in the middle of the fire. What are we going to do? We have to protect the cameras one way or another. So we developed 2 camera housings, or rather they did it, and they used the same kind of tiles that's used on the space shuttle, which are ceramic tiles that they lined the inside of the camera housings. In a way that became a bit of an embarrassment because what happened was we hardly ever used them because we realized that we would get much better shots by going in ourselves and hand-holding the cameras and going through the fire with Steadicams. And the only time we used them was when we said, oh, what the hell, let's put the camera right in the middle of it. And in one instance, we had like 5 cameras going, and I wanted to put a camera where the other cameras would pick it up. So what we did was we put the fire housing with the camera in the middle of the action, poured glue all over it, and set it afire. So all you see is a fireball, but it's actually a camera sitting in there shooting another part of the scene.
Many of the effects in Backdraft were so difficult to execute that special sets had to be built. Here's Clay Pinney to tell us about it.
In the rooftop sequence in Backdraft, where we have the collapsing section, that was done in both miniature by ILM and full scale by us. We built it on top of the Delaware and Hudson Railroad bridge that the tracks have been taken out. And it was about 25 feet in the air on scaffolding. Joe Montenegro rigged large rams underneath, had 4 giant sections that would collapse. Stunt guy would be running. As soon as he hit that first section, they would start dropping. And that was probably one of the scarier stunts because if he had lost his footing at that point, he would have gone over literally right down on top of the burners.
For Backdraft, large-scale models were built and then burned to give exterior scenes the look the filmmakers wanted without destroying real buildings. This scene combines live action with the use of a scale model and a matte painting. Here's Industrial Light and Magic's matte painter Mark Sullivan to tell us about his work on Backdraft.
The main reason that we're using matte paintings is because we're integrating the paintings into a live action surrounding. The painting medium offers a tremendous amount of control and precision in blending a synthetic image with a real image. What really makes this shot exciting for me was from a dramatic standpoint. It's coming at a really exciting point in the movie. It's the climax of the movie. It's a big payoff shot.
Stuntmen are often called on to perform the seemingly impossible. Some are even willing to light themselves on fire. These dedicated pros are known as human torches. In this scene from Apocalypse Now, legendary stuntman Terry Leonard is engulfed in flames as he escapes from a burning helicopter. This never-before-seen footage of the making of Apocalypse Now provides a rare glimpse into the planning and execution of this famous stunt. Shot in 1976 in the Philippines, the Francis Ford Coppola picture had many logistical production difficulties, including this complicated, fiery stunt. Terry Leonard.
So we had 3 guys in full fire suits, myself, Steve Boyum, and Joe Finnegan. Terry Russell gets blown out as a door gunner. He gets blown 20 feet out, and the helicopter, all in one shot, crashes to the ground. And that, to me, was really a great moment in that film.
For that moment to succeed, the stunt coordinators first had to prepare and test the fire suits. Here's Terry Leonard back in 1976 to explain.
This is a new suit made out of Kynol and needled Nomex and aluminized beta glass to allow a man to withstand intense fire temperatures for at least a minute.
But if you're on fire for at least a minute, you also have to breathe. So before any tests on the fire suit were performed, a special regulating system was built to allow the stuntmen to breathe easily.
So this whole system has been designed to be streamlined so that it'll look much more like a man and you can shoot a closer film and not give yourself away. So that's why all these little bottles and specially designed breathing units, and we've done a lot of research on this and a lot of time and a lot of development's been put on it, but this is the final test. This is to find out if it'll work or not.
Heavy-duty asbestos clothing is worn over the fire suit, along with an insulated fiberglass headpiece. Flammable rubber cement is then applied liberally to Leonard's back, and the test is underway. Since the headpiece on Leonard's fire suit prohibits him from talking easily, communication with the support team must be done by predetermined hand signals. Leonard's okay, but he felt the heat more than he'd anticipated.
How long was that? About 30 seconds. Okay, we got to do a little redesigning on how.
Some design changes are made, and a second test of the Human Torch is performed the next day. Leonard discovers that the fire suit is still more flammable than it should be. Here, Leonard is frantically signaling to pyrotechnician Joe Lombardi to extinguish his still burning fire suit. After this close call, Leonard will make more modifications to the suit. Leonard and the pyrotechnical crew then decide to go ahead with the stunt as planned. Pyrotechnician Joe Lombardi not only assisted with the fire suit testing, he also coordinated the other important effect in the scene, the helicopter explosion. Joe Lombardi.
One of the toughest things I did was blowing up the helicopter on Apocalypse with 4 people in it. This was a very heavy shot because we built a full-scale helicopter.
Lombardi rigged this life-size model with 3 explosive charges. The first detonation is intended to throw stuntman Gary Russell 20 feet, and at the same time collapse the platform on which the helicopter stands. The second and third explosions will ignite the helicopter's interior and also light the other 3 stuntmen on fire. Here's Francis Ford Coppola directing the stunt crew as to how they should act once they've escaped from the burning helicopter.
My feeling is that you've got this incredible wound in the stomach from the explosion. Maybe it tore part of you away, so you're less conscious of the fire. You're just on fire as well, and you're like a man in shock. You're very conscious, so you're trying to get out. You're dead, and your thing is to try to get to him to see how he is.
Since it will be all but impossible to direct the stuntmen during the actual shooting, Coppola requests a final walkthrough to make sure the choreography in the sequence is correct. Coppola, after conferring with Leonard, feels comfortable with the rehearsals, and final preparation for the stunt gets underway. Terry Leonard was asked how he copes with the pressure of performing such a dangerous stunt.
90% of most stunts that you do, you feel an anxiety because the thing we're getting paid for is to create a visual effect. This shot here represents a tremendous amount of money. So you feel a tremendous anxiety because you want the shot to look spectacular, and you want it to look good, and you want it to go right. Compounded with that feeling of anxiety is the extreme danger of this shot physically. You try to eliminate the risk element as much as possible because, again, you're not getting paid to hit the ground hard. It just so happens that maybe sometimes you will hit it hard in trying to give the screen that visual effect.
Thank you very much. Get ready to shoot.
Stuntmen Terry Leonard, Steve Boyum, Joe Finnegan, and Kerry Russell enter the helicopter, and the cameras start to roll. Russell escapes cleanly according to plan and lands safely on specially prepared foam tile. Leonard and the other two men emerge in flames from the burning helicopter. Despite the dangers involved in this stunt, no one was hurt. And here's what the sequence looked like as it finally appeared in the film Apocalypse Now. Movie blast can be big box office, so Hollywood takes blowing things up very seriously. And a large explosion takes weeks of planning, preparation, and the proper equipment.
I don't think he's gonna apologize.
Nah, I don't think so.
This tanker explosion from Thelma and Louise took weeks of preparation to pull off. Pyrotechnicians had to rig the tanker so it would detonate on cue. The final explosion resulted in a fireball that shot 150 feet into the air. Early movie explosions were a far cry from the dramatic detonations of today. In fact, they weren't really explosions at all. For this scene in The Great Train Robbery, director Edwin Porter used a few mild-mannered puffs of smoke to simulate an explosion. Though these effects look tame by today's standards, they gave silent film audiences their first tastes of movie pyrotechnics. Some movie explosions are so enormous that there's only one way to pull them off, with miniatures. In Die Hard, a helicopter explodes and sets the Fox Tower on fire. Here's Richard Edlund to tell us how this effect was achieved.
Basically, we had a 300 frame a second camera shooting up at the side of a building that was built in the same scale as the helicopter, which was about maybe 5 feet long, the helicopter. You hear the camera rolling, and at 300 frames a second, this thing really makes a lot of noise. I mean, it's yanking yards of film through a second. And the camera is rolling, and all of a sudden this thing goes pop. It takes no time at all because it's a little miniature with an explosion in it, and it looks silly when you look at the video of it. But when you see it slowed down to 1/12 its speed, then it looks like a shot.
The napalm blast in Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now is a spectacular example of movie pyrotechnics. A series of blasts had to be perfectly timed with planes flying overhead to create the illusion that napalm was being dropped. This explosion required perfect timing and the expertise of effects master Joe Lombardi.
And I had told Francis, I said, I'm going to do a napalm maybe about 600-700 feet long, and he kind of looked at me and said, well, okay, you know. He says, is it going to work? I said, well, yeah, I think it's going to work. So anyway, what happened, we had to dig a trench 600 feet long over there, and we lined it up, and we had pipes in there, and we had gasoline to pour in the thing there to set it off. And meanwhile, what had happened is he decides to tie it in with the jets. And what we did on the ground, we made big arrows, you know, for about a mile and 3/4 mile. This is where the strike has got to go. This is which direction you got to go. This is how high you have to be. And what happened at the time, when they made one pass, they were nowhere near the thing, so I couldn't really set it off. I was setting about maybe 100 feet from the actual blow, and Francis and the camera crew were almost a 1/4 mile away. And the biggest thing I was worried about is the heat from this gasoline, because we must have used about 1,200 gallons of gasoline in this shot.
Smell that? You smell that? Napalm, son! Nothing else in the world smells like that. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory.
The pyrotechnics used in the movie Backdraft are also employed in Universal Studios' Backdraft attraction. Here's Universal Studios special effects designer Nick Drobnis to explain.
I was in a movie theater watching another film, and they had the typical trailers And I saw it, and the first thing I thought was, gee, that's terrific. That would be an absolute fabulous attraction.
Drobness and his effects experts worked for well over a year on the Backdraft attraction.
This will be the largest amount of fire ever put inside of a building on a regular basis. We try to get right on that edge where people really feel like they're in peril when they're in the attraction, but at the same time they're laughing because they know they're perfectly safe.
The temperature inside the Backdraft attraction reaches 2,000 degrees. A 56-foot-long invisible curtain of air buffers the audience from the intense heat. Unlike a real fire, however, the attraction burns down and resets 200 times a day. Well, that's our look behind the scenes at movie pyrotechnics. As we've seen, movie fires and explosions are just as dangerous as the real thing. It takes the expertise of Hollywood's most accomplished filmmakers to create dangerous-looking pyrotechnics that are both safe and controllable. Well, that's a wrap. We'll see you next time on Hollywood Stuntmakers.